Howdy, folks. I'm Pert Petunia, pettily picking on peckish Pekingese pooches.
I'm Amber.
And here are more Pekingese pooches for us to pick on, because that's what we do. We pick on them. And, folks, I just want you to know that I have $1. That's the allowance I'm getting from Amber this week. That's it. All of it. So let me know in the comments below how I should spend my money carefully. Let's get started. Alright, folks, and our first letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Refusing to Give My Husband an Allowance and Forcing Him to Get a Job? My husband was laid off 8 months ago from being an oil and gas analyst. I'm still working, and he has been a temporary stay at home while he hasn't found work. He watches our 3-year-old and picks up our 6-year-old from school. I'm not happy with this arrangement because when I was stay-at-home mom for a year after giving birth, I did all of the housework and I took care of the kids. I still do most of the housework while he's unemployed, and he only mows the lawn and shovels the driveway in the winter now. But it's better than us having to put our 3-year-old in daycare, so I let it go. I'm a nurse and I work a lot of odd hours now because we are short-staffed and we need the money. I've been working 60 to 7 hours a week. Recently, I found out that my husband has been taking cash advances out of our credit cards so that he can go out, and he has been paying nannies using the cash. He opened a credit card to go drinking and who knows what else, and now it's maxed out at $7,000. I know that at least $2,000 has been in game purchases for his video games. I'm mad because we don't have any extra money to spare, and he hasn't been using his time to apply for jobs. Instead, he's been going out and drinking and playing video games. I didn't find this out until his credit card bills came with threatening collections. My husband defended himself when I showed it to him, and he said that he needed a break, and I would nag him if he spent our money, so I should give him an allowance. I am shocked that he has the gall to ask for an allowance. I pointed out for a year after giving birth, I was on maternity leave, I took care of everything when I was postpartum, and now it's too much for him to just watch our 3-year-old. Mind you, the second time I was on maternity leave, I was looking after our newborn and our 3-year-old while doing all the housework. He said that it was all so boring, and that I chose to do that. But he didn't choose to do this. I told him that he is choosing because he doesn't have a job, and he got mad and yelled that he is trying. I told him that he needs to go get a job now. He just got a bookkeeping job and is complaining to everyone that he knows that I'm being a bee and not letting him have any freedom. Alright, folks, what do you think?
Not the jerk. Well, I do agree that stay-at-home partners should be able to have an allowance. He spent like a decade, if not more, worth of allowances in this past year with between the nannies and the drinking and everything. You don't get to go behind your partner's back and steal joint family resources, get them into massive debt so collectors are coming after them, and then ask for an allowance.
Was it $7,000 in 8 months?
Something like that, yeah.
So that's like $875 a month?
And that was just in nannies, and then he had like the $2,000 drinking card he maxed out on top of that.
Yeah, so are we looking at like $9,000 over the course of, not in 8 months?
Yeah.
So we're looking at maybe like $1,000 a month or more. Yeah, I mean, that's quite a bit of money to spend. I mean, like, while $800 in a single month might not be too bad for a couple, but that's still a pretty good chunk of money for a couple who don't have a huge amount of money to spare, right? I mean, OP says they don't have any cash extra, and he's going out and spending money that they don't have. And I can certainly understand him being bored with the housework, right? But that also, if he's bored, then he needs to go and find a job and that kind of stuff, right?
Right, that's the thing about being a parent, is that you have to put your kids and their needs first, and he had a choice. He could have been a stay-at-home parent to their kids, but that was too boring, and he had to hire nannies to do it, so now he has to get a job.
Well, and I think that had he come out originally and been like, oh, can I have an allowance of some form or another, that would have been really reasonable, right? Because I think it is important for people to have spending money and for them to use that spending money however they deem fit, right? Because, what's life if you don't have little things to enjoy, right?
Certainly.
But $1,000 a month is a lot of spending money for people who don't have any money extra, right?
Right. Well, and this deception on top of that,
Yeah.
like he didn't even tell OP until there were creditors. Like, what was he expecting to happen?
Yeah. And that not only impacts his credit, but
Mm-hmm.
her credit too, because they're a married couple. And
Mm-hmm.
so, really, this whole fiasco is going to set them back a tremendous amount because
Mm-hmm.
that's not just going to impact their current finances, but their future finances. Because if you have a bad credit score, then it's going to make it harder for you to get loans. It's going to make loans more expensive. And then on top of that, cash advances on credit cards are a terrible idea. They usually charge you like 20%, 15, 30% sometimes for these. That's a lot of money to get basically just eaten up from these cash advances. It would have been more worthwhile for them just to use money directly or take a loan out from the bank or something like that at that rate. But yeah, I think that his actions here were really irresponsible. I don't think that he was acting like a good partner, and I can understand why OP would be upset and say, no, go get a job, right? Because like now he has a $7,000 credit card to pay off. I don't know. Let me know what you folks think, though. So anyhow, take care and good luck. And Courier Faye 111 says, not the jerk, but your husband is a major one. I can't wrap my head around producing and raising a child, yet having no understanding of responsibility as much as he does. Yes, it's well within his right to do whatever he wants, but so long as it affects you and your civil union, he must consider it. Him openly disregarding and dismissing it over his own self-righteousness should tell you a lot about his sense of entitlement, not only in his relationship with you, but the person he chooses to be in this world. Only an irresponsible, emotionally immature man would claim that drinking himself into a stupor and gaming into debt is his idea of a proper break from the little that he is already doing. Is this how he responds to hard feelings, taking it out on you financially and expecting you to be coddled while he falls apart on your dime? To shamelessly ask for even more money shows how little respect he has for you and himself. If he cannot understand that doing whatever he wants doesn't come without consequence, you have to either be the one to teach him or bounce before he continues to ruin you and your children's futures based on his irresponsibility. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of irresponsibility here.
Yeah. Well, and to top it off too, with like he had one job.
Yeah.
It was to look after the kids, and he outsourced it.
Yeah. Which I think is a terrible thing to have done, right? Those are kind of conversations that require multiple inputs, right? Because, like, I'm sure OP would have liked to have vetted and screened the individuals that he picked.
Well, and she was also like, oh, well, it's okay if he stays at home because it's saving us on daycare costs.
Yeah.
And then he probably spent more on nannies than what a daycare would have cost.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, still, I'm questioning that because, like, the amount that he's spent here, like $1,000 a month, that does not seem like quality nanny service type of thing, right? Like that seems like somebody he found on the street and is like, hey, you want to go and take care of my kid for a little while? Because that's not even like a proper dollar wage,
Well,
right?
that's
Even if you
fair.
like,
I have no idea how much it costs because I don't have kids, so.
yeah, I mean, I think like $1,000 in a month would be, you would be very, very fortunate to find somebody who would be taking care of your kid for that much, let alone all the other drinking and gaming he's doing. I would suspect that he's probably not drinking himself into a stupor on that budget, but it's still like probably a considerable amount of alcohol and, gaming. All right, folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Refusing to Pay for My Roommate's Meal? I'm a 20-year-old female, and I have a college roommate, Michelle, a 34-year-old female, who I share a summer house with in our university's dorms. Michelle is super sweet to me. Despite our age gap, we get along really nicely. It's a great dorm situation, and I think Michelle sees me as a little sister. I mostly like to cook my meals in our dorm kitchen, but sometimes I treat myself to eating out. This is where the problem started. Well, a lot of time, Michelle will join me when I eat out. Either because she's free and I want some company when my friends are busy, or because she invited me somewhere and I was free and I came along. Lately, Michelle has been showering me in extra attention and even paying for most of my meals when we eat out. She's super generous with her money, but has no job and is completely reliant on her parents. I always told her that it was fine and that I could pay for myself, but she always refused. Well, one day we went out to eat at a slightly nicer sushi restaurant to celebrate being done with our midterms. To put it as politely as possible, Michelle is a bigger girl, so she ordered a dumpling appetizer, 5 sushi rolls, and a drink. She usually orders 2 to 3 meals per restaurant when we go. I got a sushi roll and a water because it was a $10 to $17 roll, and I'm not a big eater. Well, when we were halfway through the meal, Michelle suggests that it's my turn to pay for both of our meals. I say, "What do you mean? We never set up any kind of agreement." She got really upset, claiming that she paid for all my other meals, and it was my turn to pay her back. I told her that I'm grateful that she was generous enough to pay for my other meals, but I didn't know that there was an expectation to return the favor, especially because she ordered disproportionately more food than me, and I couldn't afford that much for one meal. Michelle got mad and said something about how your parents are so rich you can afford anything, and how one meal won't break the bank. It's true, my parents are paying for my college expenses, and I'm eternally grateful that I won't end up in any debt, but they give me such a strict monthly budget that it only covers my groceries and gas. All of my money that I use to treat myself comes from my summer job. I told her that, and she went silent for the rest of the meal. When we were finished, I made sure to ask for a separate check, and she hasn't said a word to me since. I'm really worried that I caused a rift in our friendship. Maybe I was unreasonable, and I should have just paid for her meal. Am I the jerk? All right, folks, what do you think?
Not the jerk. This was not agreed upon beforehand. It seems like she probably wants to eat fancy and was trying to like butter OP up with these little meals here, and then like, oh well, it's only fair that you pay. Now it's your turn.
You know, I think in a lot of these situations where somebody pays for your meals, oftentimes it is polite to return the gesture. Like if, that tends to be in like friends, close friend circles, that if one person is paying this time, the other person pays the next time. But usually those are meals that you're ordering are very close in price, and it's not necessarily one person footing the bill for large expenses.
Right, and that's the thing here. It seems like she just doesn't have the money for a fancy meal and was hoping she could get OP to pay for a fancy meal, and her strategy didn't pan out.
Well, and I mean, I'm hoping that's not the case. Maybe she felt like she was being used by OP. Maybe she thought that OP would be more accommodating. There might have been some other underlying reason for it, but I mean, when you set up an expectation that you're the one who's always paying for the meal, it's a hard expectation to kind of like break out of, because at that point in time, like, what do you even say at that point in time? Like, oh, hey, I want to go out, but would you mind covering the cost before we do this, right?
Well, that's the thing, is there has to be some kind of discussion if you're expecting someone else to foot the bill.
Mm-hmm. So it's difficult because like there are friends groups that where it is the understanding that, oh, I'll pay this time, you pay next time, we'll call it all even at some point in time. But again, there's not a huge disproportionate amount of money that one person is spending over the other person. Mm-hmm. You don't take advantage of that whole system that you've developed with somebody. So I don't know. I mean, certainly I think like there needs to be a discussion with her about, hey, what's going on? Are you all right financially? I was really blindsided by this, and I didn't know how to respond in the moment. If OP really feels guilty about this and wants to pay for the meal, she can do that, but then she has to think very carefully about whether or not she wants to continue being friends with someone who's going to spring these surprise things on her.
Well, that's the thing. Is it seems like she was assuming that since OP's parents have money, that means OP can get whatever she wants.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. That's a really weird assumption to make.
Yeah, and so I'm wondering if things are kind of drying up with her parents. So that, because it sounds like she's reliant on her parents, and maybe they're finally like, hey, you can't spend so much money. The gravy train is run out, right? So, I don't know. I don't think that OP is necessarily in the wrong, but I can also understand why the friend would want that to be reciprocated with the actual, like, paying for the meals as well. Because it's not fun to be the person who feels like they're obligated to have to pay for the meals every single time.
Right, but it also sounds like Opie offered to pay, like, to split things all the time, and she just kept insisting, oh, no, I'll cover it, which is why I feel like she had an ulterior motive here.
Yeah, and that may very well be what was going on here. And, it's really hard to say, but it does feel like there may have been an ulterior motive here. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. And no confidence, 5235 says, everyone's in the wrong here. She should have told you beforehand that she's expecting you to pay, but you are happy to let her pay for you again and again. The polite thing to do is to treat her to dinner at least once. She's not going to treat you again after this. And OP replies, I was not happy to let her keep paying. I repeatedly told her that I would pay for myself, and she dismissed me to the point where I didn't know what to do when she sprung it on me. I mean, if OP was trying to decline to have her meal paid for, that's a really tricky situation at that point in time. Like, I don't think OP had any expectation that they were going to have a, reciprocate with this whole payment of meals. And JRM 1102 says, info, what's a 34-year-old doing living off their parents and living in a college dorm room? And OP replies, I haven't known her for long, but she told me she's working on getting her degree, and there doesn't seem to be an age restriction on who can live in the dorms. And Nutty Rose Amaranth says, I mean, I'm a 44-year-old going to college, so that part checks out. Is your college one of those that requires every student to live on campus the first year? I had to work hard to get my exemption for that, or else I would have been messed over. I had already signed a 1-year lease when I decided to even apply for college. Luckily, my college had an exemption for families, but we had quite the discussion about it. Actually, I do want to talk about that because I do know, UMaine actually has a requirement for all first years to live on campus, unless you're within a certain geographical area, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that's unusual to have to be forced to live in dorms. Like, maybe she's from out of state and she didn't have an address nearby.
Yeah.
And OP replies, yes, it is. This is her second year, so I believe it must be for one of the other reasons. All right, folks, it's tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I've got a special guest tea right here, and Amber, she is a joke.
Or a prediction. When it's sunny, at least 700 people will say, hot enough for you. When it's cloudy, at least 700 people will say, be careful, you know you get the worst sunburn when it's overcast.
I have not talked to 700 people in either of those situations, so I don't know if that's an accurate statement. I don't know where Jovial Bob sign is going around. Hey, can you talk to me for a second? Is he just walking along the beach? People randomly throwing, random, advice at him? So, as I said, I actually have a special guest tea. I was out of licorice spice this week, and so I wanted to try a different one. And I have this throat coat tea. This is supposedly good for throat health. It's not too bad. It says, with slippery elm, so it has slippery elm. It has licorice root, slippery elm bark, licorice root dry, aqueous extract 6-1, marshmallow root, and then they have a proprietary blend of wild cherry bark, fennel fruit, cinnamon bark, and orange peel. So, if you're looking for a good throat coat tea, I mean, this one tastes alright. I mean, that's all I can say about it. I don't know if it's really, stopping my voice from being overstrained or anything like that. I don't have any problems with my voice. Not to let anyone worry. Everything's fine. But I just wanted to try this. Someone recommended throat coat tea to me, and I was like, may as well try it, see if it's any good. Alright, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy, terrific Tuesday, spelled TWO. I can't believe it. We're almost halfway through the week. Tomorrow we will be. Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and or guidance, and please have it on money.
If you have joint finances, don't spend heck tons of money without your partner's consent. And if you're in a friend situation, don't bank on the other person paying when you haven't explicitly communicated your intentions.
I think those are morals that are worth sharing. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye!